Hello! So this evening we are on the ground at Seattle-Tacoma in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 with the stock 747-8 series passenger variant. And we're going to start it from cold and dark on the ground and get it ready for flight and take off. We're not going to do the whole flight, we're just going to do the first part of it. But I thought this would be interesting for anybody that's either new to the simulator or new to the 747, or to the stock 747 at least, to see the challenges we will face, because there are a few bugs in it and it's taken me most of the evening to get my head around where they are, so I can at least show you them where they are and how you can follow a procedure to get the aircraft ready and take it flying and to program routes into it. So let's get started. First things first, then, we're going to walk around in this walk around view. I know this isn't the pilot's job, but we're going to walk around, and quite how they reach those covers is anyone's guess. Do they have cherry pickers to do this? Does it come out of the hangar with those covers on? Anyway, we'll go and remove the covers. There are no chocks, and we're going to do a superhuman leap to get into the door and hang on to the handle. So we'll press Shift and C, and we've miraculously made it into the cockpit. So I'm going to be following a functional procedure, I guess you could call it, of the steps I'm going to follow to get the aeroplane ready in the simulator for flight. There are things missing from that procedure. So there's lots of checks the real crew would do to make sure hardware's working. A lot of that just isn't implemented in the simulator properly, so we're going to skip over that. And we're going to go and at least get the aeroplane ready to go flying and take it out. So if you want a copy of the procedure I'm following, if you look in the notes of the video, you'll find the link there for it. So first things first, we need a flight plan. So I'm going to Simbrief, which is a free service on the internet, and we're going to go and program in a flight plan, or get it to generate us an operational flight plan. So we'll put in our airline. So we'll go for BAW, which would be British Airways. 123 for the flight number, we'll just make it up. We are at Seattle-Tacoma, so that's Kilo Sierra Echo Alpha. If you don't know, you can click on the search icon and you can look up the airports. And we're going to go to San Francisco, which is Kilo Sierra Foxtrot Oscar. Okay, so having done that, the last thing we need to give Simbrief is the type of aeroplane, and after that it will do everything itself to figure out the flight plan for us. So we want the 748, the 747-8. So select that and off it goes, making or proposing a flight plan. And obviously it gives us lots of parameters that we can now change. We'll leave them and we'll just say generate flight. And then it will go and generate us an operational flight plan. So whenever you see crews walking through the airport, if you've been taking a flight anywhere, you'll see them carrying a folder with them. And inside that folder is this raft of paperwork, which tells the crew everything they need to program the flight and to alert them to any notices to airmen, or notifications of things that are going on that they need to know about along their route. So once we've got the route, we can go and get the airplane up and running and get it programmed in. So how do we do that? We press Shift and 7 to go overhead initially. We uncage the battery switch, we press the battery button and recage it, and the airplane is now running on batteries. It won't last for long. So we have the option, we are at the gate, so we can go to external power. So if we turn on external power on both sides, that's fine, and everything lights up. We've now got power to the aeroplane. We actually want to be running the auxiliary power unit though, because that's the thing that will both give us power and provide compressed air to spin the engines up. So if we go and rotate the APU switch to start, then it falls back to on its own. It will get on with starting up. So the reason you need the compressed air, well, there's two ways commonly you see the engines spin up on big aeroplanes. There's either electric or compressed air is used. So on the 747s, they use compressed air. So in order to generate compressed air, they have another jet engine, a really small one. So that one starts itself electrically, which is why we had the external power there, because that will do it a lot more easily than the batteries. But once the APU is up and running, it can generate both electricity and compressed air. So when it's ready, the generator lights become available for the APU, which they've just done. So we can go and press them. Notice the external power has switched off automatically. So bus transfer, as they call it, or choosing where your power is coming from, happens automatically in the 747. Okay, so as soon as we went to the APU, it disconnected itself from external power automatically. We need to go and put standby power to auto. We're not going to get into that too much. And then we've got the inertial reference system. So this tells the aeroplane which way up it is. So we rotate each of these knobs to nav, and it will start calibrating itself. If we go and look down in the cockpit, you will notice that the attitude indicator and the navigation display have nothing on them yet, because the inertial reference system isn't up and running and calibrated yet. So it doesn't know which way up the aeroplane even is. Okay, so we won't worry too much about that. We'll go back overhead because there's other things we need to do. It's going to be several minutes before we need the aeroplane to know where it is. So Shift and 8 takes us further overhead, and we can go and arm the emergency lights and close the lid on them. I'm just going to change the time of day slightly and make it a bit brighter for us, because it's really dark in here, isn't it? Is the sim going to let me? Do I have to take the weather off of live or something? There we go. Oh, it will do. It's a bit brighter now. For some reason, the time is stuck, but we'll leave it. So, yes, we've turned the inertial reference on. We've armed the emergency lights. And then we can go and deal with some other things. So, as soon as we have power to the aeroplane, we go and turn the nav lights on. And that tells any crew outside the aeroplane that, obviously we're getting it ready for flight. Next, we can go and turn on the window heaters to warm up the windows so they don't frost up when we are climbing out away from the airport. And we can put the wing anti-ice to auto on this aircraft. I think the engine anti-ices are already on auto by the look of it. So then the fun bit, we're going to go to the flight management computer and program our flight. Now this has some serious bugs, but once you know where they are, you can work around them. So first thing we do is go to POS init. You would be expecting this to say set IRS position underneath the GPS position. And normally the way the FMCs work, you can pick up the GPS by pressing the soft key next to it, or the GPS coordinates, which will put them in the scratch pad for you. So this is where you can type things. And then you would put it into the field that isn't here, saying set IRS position. Sometimes it appears, sometimes it doesn't. Who knows why? Okay, so we're not going to worry too much about that, but we're going to go and put our reference airport in. So KSEA is where we're taking off from. So Kilo, Sierra, Echo, Alpha. And drop that into reference airport. And again, it looks up that code in its database. It knows the longitude and latitude of the airport. And in it goes. Next thing we do is go to route. So the bottom right soft key. And we can put the basics in of our route. So from KSEA to KSFO. KSFO. Oh, I've got a typo in there, so I can clear through that. KSFO. So you get it ready in the scratch pad and then drop in. So notice some fields have hyphens, some fields have boxes. So if it's a box, it's mandatory. If it's hyphens, it's optional. So we're going to populate the destination. We're going to say which runway we are leaving KSEA on. So if we go and have a quick look at our flight plan in Simbrief, you can see we're leaving on 16 left. So this is the text format of a route. So the typical format you will see is the departure airport, the runway. Then you will see this code here. The first part of it is the average cruise speed that it's expecting you to perform the route at. The next part of it is the flight level. So that's in hundreds of feet. So 390 times 100 is 39,000 feet. The next part you're going to see, if you see a mixture of numbers and letters, it's the standard instrument departure. Okay? So that's a shortcut code that enters a number of waypoints at once, along with potentially altitude and speed restrictions. So it's like a macro, in effect. At the other end of the route, you will see there's another one that's got numbers and letters. That's a standard terminal arrival route. So again, it's a number of waypoints approaching San Francisco that get us in the right place for the approach into runway 28 left. So this is the arrival, that's the approach. Okay, in between the departure and the arrival, you've got the actual route. So that's what we'll be programming in a moment. Okay, so coming back in, runway 16 left. Flight number, I think we put 123 in, didn't we? So you can just key it in. And then we can activate that. And again, this is wrong. This should have lit up. But you can, it's expecting it to have been lit up. Press execute, and that goes grey, meaning it's done it, and it's saying active route. Okay? While we're still looking at the route, notice we're on page 1 of 2. We're going to go to next page, and we're going to put that middle part of the route directly in. So we're going to go to Erave is our first waypoint in the route. So we ignore the SID for the moment. So we go E-R-A-V-E. When you are programming the route on a Boeing FMC, you put airways on the left, waypoints on the right. So we're going to put our waypoint at the top right. And notice it said direct. So at the moment we haven't told it about the standard instrument departure. So it thinks we're taking off straight off the runway and going straight for Erave. But obviously we're going to change that in a moment. But for the moment, we're going to work through this. So then we do airway Q1. So Erave is on the airway. So really we're saying we join Q1 at Erave, and then we stay on Q1 until Etchy. E-T-C-H-Y. And we drop that in. And then we go direct to Mulbeck. So M-L-B-E-C, and drop that in. So we don't put the airway in because it's direct. There are 2 Mulbecks, but they're both the same coordinate. I don't know why it's done that. Select the top one. So direct to Mulbeck. Okay. Again, this should really be lighting up the execute button because we've got a modified route. If we want to confirm this and save it, say execute. It should have lit up as soon as this was modified, and it's not doing so. So having done that, we can go to performance initialization. So notice at the bottom corner of this, it's telling us what to do next all the time. So if we go performance initialization, we can then say cruise altitude. So let's go and look on our flight plan. So 39,000 feet, or flight level 390. So this will understand either 39,000 or 390. So if I just type in 390, put it in the altitude, it understands. Cost index. So cost index is here. Cruise profile, cost index 232. So the cost index is a formula that governs how aggressively the aircraft can accelerate. So basically how much fuel it can burn on the route. So you just program that in, and that obviously changes the profile the engines will run under, or the climb profile of the aircraft. Zero fuel weight. So the aircraft will calculate this itself. You just press it once, and it puts it in the scratch pad for you. Press it again, and it will populate it. Notice that's then calculated the gross weight for us based on what fuel we've got on board. Reserves. Go and look at our flight plan. Now, to find out reserves, the easy way to do it, or I find the interesting way to do it, is actually look at the proper plan here. The first section on the operational flight plan is the planned fuel. And you've got final reserves in there, look, of 4,150. So we'll just say 4 tons, or 4.1 if you wanted to be super accurate. Okay. So having done that, we can go to thrust limits. We can leave that alone. So this is out of the box. The aeroplane's going to climb using its default parameters. And then we can go to takeoff parameters. We're going to put in flaps 10, which is the typical flap setting for a 747 taking off. Having done that, it's calculated the V-speeds. So the V-speeds are essentially, the one you need to take notice of is the rotate speed, the middle one. But they're really kind of your constraints on the way down the runway of the last chance to stop and and to carry on. So 148 is our rotate speed. So to confirm each of those, you just press the buttons next to them and they get bigger. It can also calculate the centre of gravity for the aeroplane for us. So if we press the button next to it, and again, it will calculate it, and that tells us a trim setting. That becomes important on the next bit of the story. So if we go back to the normal pilot view, and we zoom back in over here, and we have a look, on the screen here we can see a stabilator section. We can use the trim control on our controllers if we have them mapped to move the trim into the middle of the green area. What that means is when we accelerate down the runway, the aircraft will be in equilibrium when it gets to rotation. So based on everything we've told the aeroplane about itself, it can work out what the trim settings should be when we get to the rotate speed. So let's come back over to the FMC, or Flight Management Computer. So we've just done the centre of gravity. So now it wants us to carry on to performance initialization. And we're back round in a circle at this point. Okay, so if you go and look in legs, you'll see we've got the legs there and it's saying modified still. So we say this should be lit up again and it isn't, press execute. So then we can go into departure and we can say runway 16 left is what we initially put in to the first screen when we were setting the route up. But we haven't programmed how we are departing yet. So we'll go and have a look. We are departing on the Harrow B6 standard instrument departure. So Harrow B6. It will then ask for a transition. The transition is how you leave the SID and get to the route. So we know it's Erave is the next waypoint. So you can see it's one of the transitions, so choose it. It means it will connect it up neatly and tidily for you in the flight plan, and you won't get a discontinuity. Okay, so having done that, again, this is modified, but it hasn't lit it up correctly. So we say execute. And now we can go back to the index, and we can set the arrival. So it would appear they've just completely missed the execute button lighting up in the programming of the aeroplane, which is mad because this aeroplane existed in the previous version of the simulator. So we're now looking at arrivals for San Francisco. We were on the right page there. So we're looking for the Bodega 4 landing on 28 left. So ILS 28 left and Bodega 4. And again, we've got two transitions. So what does this mean? The left-hand transition is how we get from the airway to the standard terminal arrival route. So we know we're ending up at Mulbeck, so we can go and choose it. So from Mulbeck into the STAR is, all part of the standard terminal arrival route, or STAR. Then you may have a gap between the STAR and the approach, so that's why there's a transition here as well. So if you can't see one, or if you look on your plan, there would be a dot and some more characters here if there was one we had to use. There isn't, so we're not going to. Okay, you can leave it empty. And again, it should have lit up exec and it hasn't, which is why it says erase. We could erase what we've done until we execute it. This should be lit up, so let's press it, and then it goes back to index. Okay, now we can go and look in the legs page and take a look at what we've got. So if you want to do a gross check of your plan, what you can do is press Shift and Space in the sim. I'm going to move the view around a little bit using the keyboard. We're going to increase the range on the navigation display to about 40 miles maybe. And we're going to change it to plan mode instead of map mode. And you can actually see now the route sketched out with a north-facing depiction of it. And if you look on the legs page of the FMC, the bottom right button says step. So we can walk through our plan and see what we've got. So press step, step, step. And notice there's a marker here saying center. It is the marker that's in the middle of the display. So as we press step, center will move down the display. So this is all on that Q1 airway look. We didn't put any of these waypoints in. So we stay on here until we get to Etchi. So we're going step, step. There's Etchi. So it looks like we haven't got any discontinuities at this point, but keep going. Are we going to find any right down at the end of the route? Yes. Notice I said we couldn't find an obvious transition between the approach, the arrival and the approach. So you got one here, look, from bricks it's expecting vectors to get to He-Man. So that's where you talk to ATC, or they give you instruction and turn you towards He-Man following their instructions. Obviously, if you want to fix this yourself without, if you're not got ATC and you're just flying on your own, what you can do is just select He-Man and then pull it up to the point you want to replace. So you want to get rid of vectors and the discontinuity. So I've selected He-Man, which put it in the scratch pad, and then I just select vectors, and it will pull everything up over the top. Okay, again, modified route. Press execute. It should have lit up. And you'll notice then this has all gone solid, the whole thing, there's no dotted bits on it. So having done that, you can put this back into plan mode, if it will let you. Also map mode, not plan mode. And maybe turn the range down a bit, back to ready for takeoff a bit later on. Back to 10 miles maybe. Okay, so to get to the top of the legs page again, you just press legs. And it goes straight to the top every time. So we've got the route programmed in, and we've got all the weights and everything programmed in. Next thing to go and look at is the mode control panel. Some people call it master control panel. So it's up here. They've messed the views up in the simulator a little bit. This hasn't got a key that looks directly at it. Let's work through them. Shift 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's Shift 3. I need to fix that then. So I'll just correct that on my instructions. And I'm going to put on the instructions mode/master control panel, because different people call it different things. But anyway. So this is the programming for the autopilot. So when we first switch it on, we want this to be configured correctly to operate the aircraft in an appropriate manner. So we've got the initial speed on climb out. We've got the major modes of the autopilot. So if you wanted it to fly and follow the route, you're going to be using LNAV. But notice we can't configure anything until we turn the flight directives on. So we turn flight directives on, and now we can go and configure the buttons. So the flight director is actually the computer that figures out how to get the aeroplane to do what you commanded. The autopilot does it. The flight director is the mastermind then. So LNAV means lateral navigation, means the aeroplane will follow the route. VNAV means vertical navigation, means the aeroplane will follow the climb profile and the descent profile for you. You've got a speed mode here. Notice if I shouldn't be able to click it because I've got VNAV on. And also it won't switch on because I haven't got auto throttle on. But we won't turn that on until we're on the runway. But we're going to go and set the heading to our initial runway direction as well, just as a backup. Okay, so we're going to press Shift and Space, and we're going to come over here so I can see it from one side to make this easier. We're going to turn this to 160 degrees. So just rolling the mouse wheel is quite slow. They haven't put too much acceleration in it this time, which makes this quite laborious. 160 degrees. So then we've got the altitude for climbing out. If you were using ATC, they might give you an initial altitude to go to, and then a further step up to your cruise altitude. We're going to go and put the cruise altitude straight in. So that was 31,000 feet, wasn't it? We've got, oh no, was it 30 or 41? Let's go and have a look. 39,000 feet. My memory is shocking. $39,000. Okay, so even though we are using VNAV, we can also select vertical speed at the same time. And notice it takes it off of VNAV when you do that. So we can go and say, okay, climb out at 2,500 feet a minute. And then VNAV as well. So it means it will do that until it can connect with that, and then it will use that instead. And that should be reflected here. VS and VNAV. Okay. So the lights on the buttons really indicate what you can press, and then this actually tells you the mode you've configured, so it can be confusing looking up there. So if you always look here to figure out what you've actually programmed, you should be good. So we've configured the mode control panel. We've also set the range on the navigation display. So we're ready to push the aeroplane back. So in the simulator, this is a bit hit and miss. There's bugs. So we're going to come outside the aeroplane and we're going to press Alt and P and see what happens. Pressed it once. We'll let it straighten up with the aeroplane. I've got the parking brake on at the moment, so when it has attached, it shouldn't push the aeroplane anywhere until I release the parking brake. Okay, so release the parking brake and notice it's turning. This fascinates me because it didn't used to do that. So whether they're trying to put code into it to rotate aircraft to the, because it is going to end up with the airplane pointing the right way, which is fascinating because runway 16 is down there. So it's turning me the right way to taxi, and it seems to be doing it of its own volition, which is surprising. Unfortunately, there's a bug in it as well, but we'll get there. So we'll let it push us around a little bit more, and then we'll tell it to go away. So obviously in the real world, the crew, as soon as pushback is actually happening, they would be starting the engines. I'm not going to give ourselves too much to do. And it's straightened up, look, and it's trying to wiggle around and it's getting really confused. So we'll put the parking brake back on. Is it going to let go on its own? Yes, it is. But how has it left the nose wheel? Can we turn the nose wheel? Yes, we can. If the nose wheel gets stuck, which I've had happen, press Alt and P again. Okay. Because sometimes it can get confused in the simulator between the truck being connected while it's not actually connected, if that makes any sense. I've seen it happen once or twice. So anyway, so the truck let go of us all on its own. So that's actually a lot better than it used to be. You used to have to command everything, and now it will just take you out and let go of you. So we need to start the engines. So what do we do to start the engines up? We're going to go overhead, so Shift and 7. We're going to turn on the fuel pumps. So we've got the main pumps here. Then we're going to go and put the beacon light onto both, which tells any crew nearby that we're about to start the engines. We're going to check the APU is on. We're going to turn on engine air. So that's routing the air from the APU to the engines to spin them up. So then the next thing I'm going to do from the normal pilot view, we're going to look up and we're going to pull each of these plungers in turn. Now, people will tell you there are official sequences this should be done in. I'm just going to go 4, 3, 2, 1. So 4, we pull it out and we look down in the cockpit, and down here you should see the N2 number is climbing. So that's the speed of the gas turbine. So the compressed air is spinning the gas turbine round. And when it gets past 20%, you can advance the fuel control lever. So there it goes past 20. That introduces fuel and ignites it. You can see the exhaust gas temperature goes up, and then the N1, the turbofan speed, starts to increase. So it's up for debate based on which version of the 747 you're in and how accurately it's simulated, whether you can start the fuel control immediately after spinning the engine up and it will kick in automatically. Or I think even in this version of this simulated 747, you can start all of the engines at once. It's not that accurate. In the real world, that would put undue pressure on the hydraulic systems and the oil systems, and seals and valves would be put under strain by doing that, which you wouldn't do on purpose. So after the engine has finished, the plunger goes back in on its own after ignition has finished. So then you can pull out the next one. So we can see engine number 3 is spinning up, and we've got the N2 number, the gas turbine speed or axle speed is increasing. So let's go and put this one on early and see if it makes any difference. When it gets past 20, you'll probably see exhaust gas temperature go mad. There it goes. So you can put it on early and it's not going to penalise us for it. So just by the same token then, let's try it. See if it hurts us in the sim. 1 and 2, they're both coming up. See, in the real world, you'd be sharing the APU pressure across both, and I imagine it would cause trouble. Let's try both. So I'm doing a bit of testing here for you, really, to see if this is possible. It saves you some time, really. Not realistic, but saves you time. So I'm just waiting for those engines to come up, and as they come up, you'll see the plungers fall back in. So number 3 is already ready, and then you'll see 2 and 1 fall back in when they are ready. Hopefully, if we haven't broken the airplane. There they go. So, having done that, looking overhead again, we can go and turn the APU off. Okay. We could actually turn the APU off here as well, the APU bleed. Then we can go to the hydraulic section over here, and we can turn each of the hydraulic systems to auto. Okay. Then go to PAX. So PAX is the environmental control, so this is to pressurize the cabin. And then we can go and turn the taxi light to on. And we can go and look down in the cockpit, and we should see lots of nice things. So Autopilot is disconnected, TCAS is off. So while we are taxiing, we might want to broadcast our position. So we can come over to TCAS, and we can see the knob here for the TCAS modes. The TCAS is Traffic Collision Avoidance System. So we rotate this round to TA, not TARA. TA means it will broadcast our position, but not respond to other aircraft. So once you've done that, if you press TFC, that's traffic, it will display any traffic around you. Okay, and put range rings on the navigation display. So the other thing we can do, but before we taxi, just so, again, to unclutter our workload, is put the flaps to takeoff position. So we want to go to 10 degrees. So having moved the flap lever with my primary controls, you can see the flaps travel on the display over here, and they'll make their way to 10 degrees. If you go and look outside, you'll see that happening outside of the aeroplane. They're quite slow to move. Okay, so backspace puts us back in, shift space makes us sense of the cockpit. It's really stuttery for some reason. Okay, it's probably me restarting the sim several times due to the various bugs I've discovered along the way. So let's just sit up a little bit, open the throttles gently, and we're off and taxiing. So let's have a look down here. We've got fuel override 3 off. So these are notices more than failures. So you could go and turn some of these on to make those disappear. So if we go press shift 7 while we're taxiing, let's turn all of the pumps on. So yes, that's saying it's got pressure problems, but having done that, so I don't know how accurately this is simulated. All it's saying now is the autopilot is disconnected. It's saying doors are on auto. The door control is down here. You can't play with it, unfortunately. We can put the seatbelts on auto. We really should have done the seatbelts earlier. But there we go, sorry. I'm hopeless at controlling the mouse at the moment for some reason. So we're going to taxi down to 16. So just while we're on our way, we can go and do a little recap of what we've got selected here. So we've got the heading set, but we've also got LNAV. We've got vertical speed, but we've also got VNAV. We will arm the auto throttle when we get to the runway. So then at the point we switch on the autopilot, everything should come together, if that makes sense. Just be careful, you can see the speed is creeping up as we taxi. Be careful you don't taxi too fast. The 747 cannot change direction quickly on the ground. It weighs several hundred tons. It's, yeah, it has a lot of momentum. So we're going to clear the warning out. Something I've not been doing that I should have been doing. Whenever a warning light comes on, you should remark to see, or you should look to see what's caused it and clear it. Otherwise, you won't know what has caused it to light up. So we need to go, and one of the final things to put on our list is go and set the auto brakes to rejected takeoff, which I've not got on my list, I don't think. I ought to go and check that. So I'm just reading my list as we taxi. So, yeah, I've missed it off the list. I'll go and update it later. So I'm missing from my own procedure. So we're going to come off the throttle, bring them back to idle, and we're going to start using the toe brakes. And again, the 747 doesn't stop quickly. So we're going to bring it almost to a walking pace to make the turn. Out onto runway 16 left. Remember, you can put the nose out over the other side of the runway to get onto the centre line and then bring it round. Okay, it's more or less that. So notice the caution light has come back on. So this is saying the checklist is incomplete. So if we go and press the checklist button over here, it will come up on the screen. It now says checklist complete. But I think the reason for this is the pre-flight checklist. If you go, you can't actually change them, I don't think, which is a bit of a shame. So this isn't fully programmed on this version of it, so you can't get rid of that warning, which is really frustrating. Unless there's some button somewhere that I'm unaware of. Will this allow us to change it? Nope. Anyway, so we're not going to worry too much about the checklist. Okay, we're going to clear that back off the screen. So press Shift and Space, we're ready to go. Except we need to do the lights. So, landing lights on across the board. And then on the far side you will see the strobes. So we're going to put the strobes on as well. Now we're on the runway. If you wanted to... actually, no, I'm going to keep quiet. There's a thousand things you could do. But we're going to go and arm the auto throttle now. And we're going to ease the throttles forwards. Come off the brakes. So we're watching the V speed. Can we brighten this up a bit? Again, one of your steps preparing the cockpit might be to check the brightnesses. So we're coming through VR, so we can bring the nose up. So then we got climb rate, so gear up. So the auto throttle has kicked in, it's gone to speed mode. So then we can go autopilot on, and it's taken over. Now notice this is really bad. It kind of sways around before it joins the route, which is not great. It's complaining about the checklist still. So we need to raise the flaps now ahead of the aircraft accelerating to their limit speeds. Again, in the real thing, I think it would arrest its acceleration on purpose because it couldn't get there. But that's it. We're in VNav, which controls the speed according to the programmed profile. Yeah. And the airplane's off and running and on its way. So your next things to look up are things like the barometric pressure of the the transition altitude, at which point you would change the barometric pressure. That's missing off the checklist as well, isn't it? I should have had that in there, unless I skipped over it while we were working through. I'll have to go and double check that for you. I think it is in here, yeah. I just skipped over it while we were busy talking. It's one of my common failings in making these videos is I'll be busy talking about one thing and skip something else. So when we were programming up the navigation display and the mode control panel, we really should have gone and set the local barometric pressure on the altimeter, and we didn't do that. I'm setting a bad example. Which means, although we're on no weather, which means that we are at standard barometric pressure anyway. So as we come through 10,000 feet, we should see the aircraft automatically accelerate. So I'll hang around for a couple of minutes, just watching, minding the airplane, and see it depart. So we're going to have a look outside. So I wonder what the mountain is to the east of Seattle. There's the airfield we've just left. So let's have a look inside. 9,000 feet. When we get to 10,000 feet, the 250 knot restriction will be removed and the aircraft should start accelerating. So I'm just keeping an eye on it until it gets there. So you'll see it dip the nose. You'll see the climb rate drop off because it will favour getting to speed ahead of altitude. Yeah, so watch the nose is dropping and it's accelerating, look. So you can see the climb rate dropping off gently as it makes its way up to, was it 320 or 329 knots? I always forget how fast 747s are. Anyway, apart from the checklist, which we don't appear to be able to interact with in this version of this 747, which is a shame, everything else was pretty good. Yeah, you can't... There should be a touchscreen where you can press things, or it should have a cursor knob that works where you can... Is there one this side that we can use? No. But then that should... Oh, it was almost a touchscreen then. But yeah. Oh well. You can't have everything, I suppose. So you're going to get that checklist warning no matter what happens. Or certainly on this flight I've had it happen. Your luck may be different than mine. So I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. So that's starting the 747 from cold and dark. There's a couple of bits I need to put in there in the checklist which I've missed out. But otherwise it's looking pretty good. Obviously this is a free 747. I know people are going to bash it for its shortcomings, but it's free. You get it. Or I guess you're paying for the sim though, aren't you? So it's not entirely free, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. I wonder if the brightness works on the... No. Oh, it does, yes. Brightness does work on the MCP. You can brighten that up as well. So brightness on the screens, I don't think I covered that during the video. You can... there's various knobs around the cockpit to control brightnesses. So if we sit back down, you've got the two knobs here, which will do these two screens. These two screens over here are controlled over here. Can't probably get to the knobs very easily. There they go. And obviously these two, sorry, are the ones for here. Anyway, I really am going to leave it now. Otherwise I'll just end up sitting here all afternoon telling you about more and more things about the aeroplane and how to operate it and what to do if this happens and what to do if that happens. The aeroplane will more or less fly itself out to cruise altitude now completely automatically. The real fun and games comes with when you start flying with ATC and they might give you some instructions and you have to deviate and reprogram your route en route and things like that. But that's another story for another day. See you soon.